Hey, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Academy Insider Podcast. I'm really excited about this episode because it's not often you get direct access to the athletic director of a massive institution like the Naval Academy. And so I'm joined by Mike Kelly. He's the brand new Naval Academy Athletic Director. And he talks about the Navy athletics program at large, from all 36 Division I sports, club sports, everything that's going on in Annapolis, facilities improvements, recruiting with NIL, how he hires coaches, what he's doing to support the midshipman athletic experience in Annapolis. It's an incredible episode. We get a ton of behind the scenes and insight into what his priorities are, what his focuses are, and how he's going to define success in his time as the athletic director in Annapolis. So check it out. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the listen. Have a great day. All right, sir, welcome to the Academy Insider Podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. This is going to be a really fun, special episode. Before we jump into it, for those of you who may not be aware of who you are, again, like this, the Naval Academy Athletic Director can be such a high position. People may not know who you are personally. I'd love for you to have the opportunities to introduce yourself, tell people where you're from, and kind of what your career path has been that has led you back to Annapolis, taking over as the new athletic director this year.
Well, sure. Happy to do it. And thanks so much for the opportunity to be with you today on this podcast. I mean, my name's Michael Kelly. I've served as the director of athletics here at the Naval Academy since a long time now, since June 23rd. So just a couple of weeks in to kind of get acclimated over the course of the summer and then hit these fall seasons full throttle. Most recently, I joined from the University of South Florida, where I served as the athletic director for the previous 7 years. I'd been there as an associate AD 20 years prior to that under then athletic director Leroy Selman, who was a real mentor to me, former NFL Hall of Famer, college football Hall of Famer. Yeah. Unfortunately, passed back in the early 2010s, and that was a big loss for that community and for me personally. And when the opportunity to go to South Florida arose, to kind of, he was largely responsible for starting football at USF back in the late 1990s, and so being there at the beginning and then be able to be a part of their next evolution was exciting for me. We built an indoor practice facility there, and their new stadium and operations building are well underway before I was able to find the opportunity here at Navy. Some stops along the way before Navy, served as the president for 3 different Super Bowl host committees in Tampa, Jacksonville, and Miami, which basically meant almost similar to a military operation. It was basically an advanced team to go into those cities to be able to prepare, hotels, party venues, practice sites, the stadium itself, security plans, kind of getting it prepped up for the NFL to come rolling into town. They execute the event flawlessly like they do, and then they bowl out of town, and I would kind of clean up and go on to the next one. So that was fun to move from Tampa to Jacksonville to Miami and doing those events back in the early 2000s. I've served as the senior associate commissioner for the Atlantic Coast Conference, where I oversaw football operations, broadcasting, and communications. So served all those different sports for those 15 different schools at that time in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And then I had an opportunity to be the very first chief operating officer for the college football playoff, where instead of working for one commissioner like I did at the ACC, work for all 10 at the FBS level. That we're starting a brand new venture that has now really become, I think, one of the best startups in the sports industry this century in terms of revolutionizing postseason college football and a big part of where we are. But all in all, it was always been a personal and a professional aspiration for me to come here to Navy. My father is a 67 grad. Yeah. So when he was even stationed here in Annapolis near the end of his military career, I was born in this area, was around the yard as a youngster, came to games throughout my childhood and teenhood, went to high school over at St. John's High School in Washington, D.C., where I was it was all military at that point in time. So that gave you some good exposure to that lifestyle. Went on to get a graduate magna cum laude in political science at Wake Forest University, and then went on to St. Thomas University in Miami, Florida, where they were well known for one of the better sport administration schools when that industry was just starting to blossom in the early 90s, where I got my master's there, and that just launched the career that I've just outlined for you. So, But all in all, it's a dream come true for me to come here, not only from the personal roots of my father, but the way I've always respected the Naval Academy. What I think nowadays with all the changes in college sports, to me, is really just the best of all worlds, being able to serve those who serve, to be able to have, in essence, one of the largest athletic departments in the country at the Division I level, to have that many variety of sports, because our midshipmen are, want to compete at the highest level possible in so many different sports to round out their physical mission. Mm-hmm. And it's just a real joy to kind of help be a part of that element of creating great officers and warfighters for the future of the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that piece is really cool. Again, it's a unique job, right? It's a unique job that I think is, again, unlike maybe others that you could take in this world, and a professional, obviously accomplishment, but personally very cool as well with your ties to the Annapolis area and specifically the Naval Academy. I know that's got to feel special. But for you, kind of shifting into this role at a service academy specifically, what have your priorities been? Are they different from what they were at USF? Do you look at the role differently from the one you have at USF, or is the approach similar? And kind of how has this adjustment been coming to Annapolis, taking on more sports, like more programs, as well as the service aspects of the service academies?
Yeah, there's some aspects of it that are the same, and some, as you just mentioned, that are very, very different. And it's the ones that were different that were a life experience that I wanted to have. It was a feeling of service that I wanted to be able to give back to, obviously, an industry and an institution that really gave me directly or indirectly a chance at the life that I've had through my father and through the many others that have served through the Naval Academy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some ways, the sports are the sports. You're trying to compete against the competitive environment that you're in. In our case, the American Athletic Conference for football,
Mm-hmm.
Patriot League for many other sports. You want to, you expect to win. You prepare to win. You have a strategy day in, day out, to win. So that requires on my side and the side of the NAAA, the Naval Academy Athletic Association, to be able to provide those resources, for the midshipmen to be successful in the competitive environment that they're in. Yeah. So you got to evaluate, hey, what do we need to be successful?
Yeah.
And that's the same when I was at USF or Wake Forest or anything else. You're trying to evaluate the environment you're in, figuring out what can be your secret sauce, what can be the strengths that you can play to be successful. And I would say here, you got the ability of dedicated people, smart people, folks that are very competitive. Yeah. They're striving to win, and we're one of the greatest leadership factories in the world, and trying to kind of prove that mission and have the ability to test that mission each and every day. Yeah. And that's what I think athletics and being able to play this many sports at D1 level allows. It gives you daily challenges in the crucible, as the superintendent refers to the Naval Academy as a chance to test, learn, get better, and win each and every day, whether it's practice, it's one-on-one like you and me going at it, or whether it's ultimately a game. So for us, it's been really, just kind of finding what are the strengths that we can play to, and finding ways to win, so that you prepare to the point that you're confident on game day to be the very best you can at the moment of competitive greatness.
I love it. I think that's really cool. The superintendent specifically calling out and saying the Naval Academy is a crucible. I love it. For anyone who's listening to the podcast, again, we did release an episode earlier this summer all about the Naval Academy Crucible, with a book that was written by Admiral McNeil, who's on staff at the Naval Academy as well. I love that this theme of the service academy education meaning to be a really difficult one, meaning one to overcome a lot of adversity, face a lot of struggles, do really hard things, and prove to yourself you can do hard things, is incredible. And that's where I'm turning maybe this back to you a little bit too, because again, we're talking about success in an athletic perspective, about winning games, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. Like you're saying, we have to provide all the resources necessary, give all the midshipmen everything they need to be able to perform and compete at an extremely high level. But with this mission of the institution overall about producing warfighters, about creating men and women who are ready to become officers in the Navy and Marine Corps, does that change your definition of success at all in this role? Or are there additional factors you have to consider? Or would you say, again, kind of your approach was the same at USF? At the end of the day, we're still just trying to develop young men and women to be ready to go out and do great things in the world. How is that shift at all kind of adjusted what success looks like in this role for Naval Academy Athletics?
Well, the focus is similar, in that you're still trying to provide through education and through experience to make men and women have the opportunities to be better citizens of the world. It's just that the extra level here is that while you've got the ability to do that at other colleges, here you've already committed yourself to being an officer, to being a leader for our country. And whether that's in the military, whether that's ultimately in governmental or civic service, or ultimately in business, you've just already gone that next step and committing that extra focus. And that's very inspiring to have that maturity and have that self-awareness as a young man, probably making that decision at the age somewhere between 18 to 20, that knows they want to serve that country to that extent. Yeah. So that's kind of the uniqueness there. Clearly, it's just an extra level of commitment and the realization of something that you want to do So we take great pride in that, and then realizing the full picture of not only what the Division I athletic experience can be here at the Naval Academy, but what you're signing up for, basically a brotherhood and a sisterhood of alums all over the world, quite frankly, so that have had such success and common pride in the experience that you have here at the Academy and experiencing the crucible, if you will.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty special. And then you kind of put it all together and try to just bring great glory here to this great institution.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the the things specifically about this platform that I'm excited about is we have a large audience of listeners who are their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles of midshipmen. And as you know, again, in this institution, because of the amount of Division I sports that we have, the vast majority of midshipmen do compete in an athletics program at Navy. And one of the things that's going to most drastically impact their experience are the people associated with their story, with their journey. And a lot of that comes down to coaches. And so specifically for you in this role, who again will kind of make the final decision about who are going to coach these programs, what is most important for you when it comes to keeping and or hiring coaches? Like, what are you considering when it comes to who is going to take the realm and lead these young men and women here kind of in their athletic programs?
Man, that is an awesome question, because you're right. The number one, the midshipmen here are so special because they've committed to what we've talked about already. Everyone breaks a sweat at the Naval Academy because we've got the 36 varsity sports, you've got the 15 club sports. Everyone else during the respective sport period is still doing some sort of active physical training, even if they're not playing, an organized event to that extent. So that's an important part of obviously being fit as an officer, leading your people in your care, and then obviously to lifelong quality of life toward healthy lifestyle.
Sure.
So that's first and foremost. But then when you think about the coaches, 36 head coaches, you've got 15 club coaches that are working with folks. You've got an officer rep, at least one with every team. You've got a faculty rep with each team. So that's just a lot of great energy and leadership being poured into these midshipmen. And all those influences are really important. It's got to be done in a super efficient way, because the time constraints, as I know I've even listened to some of your other episodes, just talk about the time management skills that are so necessary for our midshipmen, and which prepares you for anything you want to do in life, is really vital. So therefore you have to have the best quality possible there. And for me, of course, I always want coaches that are going to have the right grit to them, that are going to want to lead well, and really have what I call real authentic relationships with their players, ones that obviously still treat them well and with respect, but obviously coach them hard, coach them with love, coach them hard. And so there's an understanding that, hey, I'm only here to make you better, whether it's to win or make you be a part of the day that the physical mission plays in the ultimate development of an officer, are all really, really important. So yeah, just like the extra lens or filter that we go through in our recruiting for all of our, probably about 1,400 varsity midshipmen, that hey, you got to make sure this is what you want, and you're going to be willing to commit to what else goes into it. It's the hard that makes it great, if you will. You got to be able to commit to that. Same thing with coaches. There are some great qualities here that you would never ever want to leave, and this is everything you'd want in a college coaching experience. But you have to realize, and it's very made clear to everybody in this organization, that they're midshipmen first.
Yep.
And so as a result, they have a lot of obligations there. And once you realize that, that's going to, from maybe what you've experienced at a civilian university, there might be some recruiting aspects that are different. There might be some time availability aspects that are different, and you have to embrace that and understand it. So as we look at our coaches, I think we've got some ones that are really accomplished, really great. And the one reason they're here is because they believe and understand that whole mission. And if we have searches in the future, that's just the other thing that I'll be uber careful about, is that you just have to make sure they fully understand. All the greatness of the Academy, it's a great place to live, the tradition and the history and the success that we've had in almost every single program here. But you got to make sure you understand the full mission, and it's made crystal clear to, again, everyone here that they're midshipmen first, and then close second, great D1 athletes that are here to be the best they can be.
It's a hard job for coaches. Like, again, it takes a little bit of perspective to like fully see it. I just remember being a midshipman, like in the midst of it all, and you're exhausted. But like when you're a Division I coach, right, your livelihood really depends on winning games, right? Like on doing things and making the program successful. And that's tough. Like, again, for basketball specifically, that's the experience that I can talk about, is you would go play at Lehigh or Lafayette on a Wednesday night. Game starts at 7:30, hopefully. You go to overtime, whatever. Game ends 10:30, 11 p.m. Now you're on a 3-hour bus ride back home. it's 2 a.m. And guess what? Those midshipmen have to be up for morning formation and show up to class that starts at 7:45. And
That's right.
unlike maybe some of the other civilian institutions where you may be able to watch a lecture online or something or sleep in, like, no, your kids are going to be getting 4 hours of sleep, going to class for 5.5, 6 hours, and then have to show up and get ready to practice and compete again at the Division I level that afternoon. And to like have to, but I appreciate what you're saying is like coaches need to be able to understand, empathize, and adjust to that because it's not a traditional coaching experience. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you get to just like take it easy. Like you have to figure out, untraditional ways to still go and compete and win. And so like I appreciate that. And obviously you have a deep understanding with the fact that your dad was a grad, you've been in Annapolis, you have a good understanding of the institution, but it requires a deep level of understanding of the midshipman experience because of its uniqueness compared to other universities. How are you going about learning more about the life of a midshipman? And I appreciate you mentioning some of these other things and podcasts that are going on to get a sense of, the midshipman life. How are you choosing to invest in learning about the midshipman experience to kind of better understand how you're approaching this, program at large for the entire university and institution?
Yeah, I mean, you've described it well in terms of just how it's different. I mean, a lot of things are similar. There are some things different. You've got to accept that, and hopefully, you shouldn't be embracing it because it is. Again, it's the hard that makes it great. It's what you're doing to be able to know what's at the end of the puzzle there. But what I think is because there's some non-negotiables, right, to create the great leaders that we're creating here. So, but that being said, I think it's great to kind of understand things from all perspectives, from the superintendent, from
Mhm.
the commandant, from the provost staff. From our perspective, it's my job to at least educate and explain, what our midshipmen are going through at the varsity and club level, so that they too can have an appreciation for, hey, what's non-negotiable, what things could maybe be discussed that can be adjusted in certain ways, if there are any, that still kind of again still have the ultimate mission of creating the officers that we're here to do, but also everyone here on the yard wants our teams to be successful, and when it's reasonable and successful to do so, we'll make that happen. But I think the main way they do that is by pouring a whole lot of energy into it. The brigade so supportive of so many of our athletes at games, obviously at football games, the whole brigade is there. And as I mentioned earlier, to have the dedication of officer reps that are there to observe, monitor, support shows that the care from the military side, the fact that I mean, sometimes it's hard at some spaces. You get an appreciation from a couple faculty members and certainly a great faculty rep here to have an awesome faculty rep and Dr. Copper to
Mhm.
all these different ones that are each one for each individual sport. That's kind of unheard of to have that much support. So everyone knows it's hard. Everyone wants to support and make sure it happens. But we also know that pouring into that is what makes us be successful at the end of the day.
100%. For everyone listening, I just want to double down on just the importance of an officer rep and a faculty rep as well, and the impact that it makes in the Naval Academy experience. I remember deeply, I had a couple of incredible officer representatives during my time, Commander McInerney early on, and then it turned into Major Lowell Cruisinger, who was the officer rep. And I continually say, like day in and day out, the most that I learned about leadership and about my development as a young man came from road trips with Major Cruisinger. Like he sat down and he took me under his wing. He mentored me. He taught me. He coached me. He gave me books. We read Gates of Fire and like went through and broke down multiple chapters on different, road trips. We would sit, we would talk, we would discuss. He was the one that encouraged me to go and apply to be the Reg Commander of Plebe Summer for the year. He encouraged my involvement in the brigade and the military side of leadership. And that kind of stuff is just incredible because these officer reps, it's not just that they're there as a formality. They're there to mentor, to teach, coach, and mentor these young men and women in an environment that is you're mutually passionate about, which is that sports team. And
No, you're exactly right. I mean, just think about and all these officer reps and faculty reps are so accomplished in their own right. You're around kind of legends of the game,
Mhm.
thinking, hey, I'm an 18, 20-year-old. It's these people are pouring into me. And as you know, firsthand, I mean, the people you meet here that might come speak to your team or that you get to go hear a four-stall
Mhm.
lecture or you get to see that someone that's visiting the superintendent or the provost or the commandant. I mean,
Yeah.
exposure that you have to great leaders, great people, great experts in their respective fields.
Yeah.
It's truly second to none. So it's pretty inspiring to be here and well worth the extra effort because as Coach Newberry likes to say, the NIL in this era here,
Yep.
you get the NIL on the back end here at the Naval Academy. You get prepared for life, you get a great job, you get skills for a great job, and you have a network of a brotherhood and a sisterhood unlike any other.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. Like, and you just even take a look at Navy basketball, the lineage that we have here, right? Again, we have David Robinson, literally David Robinson in our chain here. But just you're saying the network that you become a part of. I've had a couple of meetings recently with Carl Liebert, who was another class of '87 grad, part of that incredible team in Navy basketball history. He was COO at USAA, the CEO of Keller Williams, now the managing director of a massive private equity firm in New York City. And I have access to him because we're Navy basketball alumni and have that brotherhood, right? And
That's right.
that
Crazy.
connection to the Navy.
My high school teammates from St. John's High School, two of my guys that started ahead of me when I was a junior, they came here. Eddie Reddick and Eric Harris, played here at the Naval Academy. They've gone on to highly successful careers.
Yep.
David Robinson's getting inducted into the DC Basketball Hall of Fame this weekend. We've got Kyler Whitaker coming back. We've got a couple years later Jeremy Totten here that's highly successful here in the Indianapolis area. Again, all just trying to pour in, and have come and met with me or called me, and I didn't even have to reach out to them. Like, hey, what can we do to help Navy basketball be successful? What can we do to name the sport? Someone's come by here to try to find ways to make it happen. Which, as you and I have talked about a little bit offline, is really vital, because having the largest athletic department in the country is great, and we're doing it for all the right reasons. But the NAAA is a privately funded organization. So to run one of the largest athletic departments in the country in an era where there's, not government support, not institutional support. I'm not asking for it. I'm just saying that everyone that wants to see those victories on Saturday or Friday or what have you, you really can have an impact with either the networking that you and I have just been speaking about, or ultimately in terms of donations and support that kind of go into certain things or certain sports that you have a passion for. So buying those Navy football tickets, donating to our different funds, all those things are really, really vital, or we can't compete. I mean, we can compete and put a team out, but if you want us to be successful and we want to have the experience that these young men and women deserve, that's what we need, the brotherhood and sisterhood to do that for us.
Great segue. I appreciate it, because that's where we're getting to, which is this idea of money. Because at the end of the day, like you're mentioning, we have a massive athletics program. And so how does, and you mentioned a bit about it there, but I'd love if you could give a honest breakdown to the people who are listening, just to provide context and understanding of how this whole ecosystem works. How is the Naval Academy Athletics program funded? Like, do we generate our own revenue? Does that revenue cover the entire operating budget for all of the sports? Where do we receive supplements from? This NAAA, what is it? And then if parents wanted to support the overall Navy athletics program, including all of the Division I sports, how do they contribute? How do they support?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, it's really kind of one that's often misunderstood. So that's why it's great to be able to talk about it on the podcast, because I think even some alums sometimes will be like, well, the government funds your whole deal, so you don't need me. and again, we're very grateful for what the government and public funding does for the institution as a whole. But even for that, I mean, hey, that provides the grounds, that provides the in our case certainly the scholarship, if you will, and certainly the food in Kings Hall and the Bancroft Hall and all that. So the core is taken care of for all midshipmen. We're all the same. Obviously, we're all midshipmen first, but then everything to go with in essence, the travel, the coaches, the support staff, the operations behind things, the food, the supplemental food, everything that goes into an athletic department are all fully and keenly raised through revenue sources. And a good part of it, frankly, is through football. It's our most marketable and most revenue generating sport. Mm-hmm. So the background I have here of Navy Marine Corps Stadium being filled every Saturday is really important for us. Yep. The Army-Navy football game is a vital commercial consequence to us. Yep. That's why we not only want it to be the beacon that it is of a great American tradition, but for both West Point and for ourselves, it's a major part of our budget in terms of what we can garner from television that broadcasts that game, and certainly the different locations we move it around to make sure we can maximize revenues of that game. Mm-hmm. And then obviously great sponsorship support. We have a whole corporate sponsorship team that you see at all of our, mostly at football, but at other events as well, radio networks. And then beyond that, it's donations. It's generosity of people directly through either what's called our blue and gold efforts, which are, have a lot of benefits directly related to parking and seats and seating locations and that sort of thing at the stadium, or the margin of excellence, basically our overall support through working with the foundation for our athletics and scholarships programs. Yeah. People just flat out make gifts to make facilities, because we do have awesome facilities. We have created awesome facilities that have been
Hmm.
privately funded that our teams use, and we also share with the midshipmen. So we not only take care of our own, but we try to find ways to enhance the life of the overall midshipmen
Yeah.
in terms of facilities that the non-varsity athletes can use as well to make sure it's part of their physical mission. So
Yeah.
long-winded way of saying it's just that's where it's not unlike many athletic departments that we have to be as self-sufficient as we can, but it's not the situation where the government isn't and shouldn't be supplementing us with more things.
Sure.
It's more a matter of what we can do with our donors, alums, and friends of the Naval Academy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, we mentioned football. Football is the flagship sport. It's the primary revenue generator that, again, in most cases, allows us to have such an expansive athletics department across the span of different sports at the Division I level. How do you ensure, though, like, what are the challenges you face when it comes to now reallocating a budget to make sure that every sport gets what they need to excel, but also continuing to emphasize, prioritize, and focus on a football program that continues to win, continues to generate support, and continues to generate revenue that powers the whole operation, right? Like that's a tough thing to balance. And how do you approach that whole situation?
Yeah, it comes with transparency and
Sure.
authenticity with the staff. And good news is the coaches here understand that. I
Yeah.
mean, we will, and my predecessor has done an excellent job of identifying priorities, figuring out what do they need to be successful. Each coach is clearly there to saying this is what I feel I need to do to accomplish the goals that you're setting out for me. And if we can provide those, then that's where we go hand in hand and have the kind of success that we expect with no surprises there, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if we as the NAAA are not providing what we think we need to be successful, then that's just as much, that loss is just as much on us as it is
Sure.
on anyone else. So we want to have this symbiotic partnership that we go hand in hand together. That, hey, look, I'm here to deliver the resources and the support that you need to be successful. And I say that speaking to both a coach and to a midshipman varsity athlete. So that's what we'll do. We hopefully are always on a mutual understanding going into each and every year about what's been provided, what our expectations are, how can we get better,
Mhm.
what do we need to do to help you get better, what facilities are needed, what can we kind of plan for long term, and all those things.
Yeah.
But making it clear that they understand that, hey, our football's a dominant revenue generator for us. We do well with lacrosse. We continue to put a big emphasis on lacrosse. That also is important. Basketball has some revenue opportunities, but a lot of other sports we don't charge admission for. It's just something that we doesn't really have that revenue generating opportunity for us. So we all just got to understand. But the ultimate revenue generating opportunity beyond the obvious aspects of football is on philanthropy,
Hmm.
and that's where, for understanding what the students need, be able to tell the whole story of the Naval Academy to this audience here, mostly of parents and friends and grandparents, or if it's more on different podcasts related to Naval Academy, Uber sports fans, whatever it happens to be. But I hope everyone will just kind of take away from this conversation, just realize like, hey, I love watching Navy football on Saturday as much as the next guy, and we're probably playing against, with very few exceptions, folks that are operating about 3-4 times the amount of the budget that
Yeah.
that we have. And again, that's not complaining. We knew that, we know that,
Mhm.
but we want to give our guys a fair fight and the right types of training opportunities to be the best that they can be. And then that goes hand in hand with the other sports.
Yep.
But in this era of college sports the way it is, and so much emphasis being provided on whether it's NIL or maybe different with the whole revenue sharing aspect that's out there for many schools right now. So we don't really have to worry about that. I'm not raising $20 million just to pay the players, but what I am trying to always raise millions of dollars for is to improve their facilities,
Yep.
improve their experience. Raise millions of dollars for is to improve their facilities, improve their experience. There's more things that will help them win. So we can kind of look at whatever a coach thinks that we need to win. We'll know that. We'll tell the narrative to our fans, and it might strike a chord as to a passion that they have, and say, hey, if this is what swimming says they need to be more successful, can you help me, sir, ma'am? And more times than not, we're able to get what we need, and that's a really great thing.
Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about facilities, because this is like something that, like, it's the salty old grad in me, like when I was going through my plebe year, Halsey was under construction. And so as a basketball player, like, we would have to go to the locker rooms at the soccer facility, like all the way close to the seawall or in West B. And then we were practicing in dry dock, like they constructed like a temporary court in dry dock, and the sun would peek through the windows in dry dock, and you're trying to shoot a jump shot with like sun in your eyeballs. But now again, these facilities in Halsey are incredible. including the locker rooms, right? Which makes a huge quality of life improvement for these midshipmen to have a space that they can go to and relax and be able to like have a place to study, to work out of, to whatever the case is prior to and after practice. It's incredible. And I know there's discussions about like the lacrosse facilities, but I want to turn it to you to, have an opportunity to talk about, are there any more like facility improvements like in the works, kind of in the pipeline? And what are the goals or focuses when it comes to facility, like maintenance, increases, improvements as you're moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, facility improvements here on the yard and certainly at most colleges are never ending, and most important here because in this case, whereas a lot of civilian universities, hey, it's that one varsity team uses it and no one else,
Mhm.
right? Here, we obviously have some good priority scheduling, which we need to be successful, but we also share that facility with camps, and we have people coming over. We all the whole brigade in many cases, so there's a lot of bigger use again to fulfill the physical mission here. So it's very very different. And so there's a lot of ongoing, constant, recurring maintenance that needs to occur. You talked about your experience with Halsey when it was under development. Right now, McDonough Hall's been under a lot of renovations for years now. Evidently, I'm obviously only been here a couple months, but that has all of these things have a cascading effect, right? Because you have lacrosse that hasn't had access to their locker room for water polos. Different teams have had all kinds of needs for that haven't been able to use. So we're squashing it, squishing into something else to make that work, and that's hard. And we got to do a good job, and not just everyone has to react
Sure.
when there's good progress being going. But looking ahead, I mean, we fully anticipate this calendar, or if not this calendar, there's certainly this academic year to begin construction on the lacrosse facility that's been talked about for a while. So that's a priority for me to get going because that will not only be something that will aid men's and women's lacrosse tremendously, but again, that provides other weight rooms, rest and recovery rooms that kind of allow all of our teams to spread out a
Yeah.
little bit, have a little more elbow room, and supports all of us. Helps even soccer since they'll be in a similar geographic footprint that can have some more modernized things that can happen. We just put new practice fields in for football in the off season, which is a nice new practice field. We put in a new turf at Marine Corps Stadium. We've got a track that's currently being completely refurbished and redone,
Nice.
which is going to be in place for the spring season
Mhm.
this year. So that was important to get for track. We've got some important improvements necessary for our clubhouse and things happening out at the baseball stadium. So that should start sometime in the next 6 to 12 months. And then we're just going to keep. And then you get back to the earlier commentary. Those were all things that we need for our training and for our to improve our facilities. And then you look at some opportunities that are happening at Marine Corps Stadium where we're preparing some additional renovations to some on the south side. There's corner areas creating some banquet space and premium space that'll be good for revenue generation and a great huge gift from the Lakefield family that's going to create a whole pavilion on the north side of the stadium. That's going to be another great facility that'll serve the whole community, but certainly the Naval Academy community as well. So we're going to always keep looking for ways to enhance the experience at Navy Marine Corps for football,
Yeah.
for lacrosse, and obviously for other events that we can generate revenue from.
Yeah.
Because if we can create one of the finest venues in Anne Arundel County or really in the whole DMV
Mhm.
for folks to have events at, those are things that are also going to be sustainable for us. Just like when we have the amazing golf course that we have, that those are all revenue generating things that help as well. When we were able to host tournaments like we did last weekend with the GOAT or the women and being able to host the Patriot League Championship coming up, or
Mhm.
for us to be able to host NCAA championships to help us have a better chance to win. All these things are there, all the while being able to serve a major golf community here that gets to play on one of the best courses in the country.
Yeah.
So all these things are symbiotic. We can kind of find ways to serve the midshipmen first,
Mhm.
generate revenue, and then ultimately be able to serve the community, make Annapolis just a great place to live that it is.
Heck yeah. I love it. I mean, I think there's so many factors to your role in your job that people just don't even think about and consider. Right. And so
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I mean, every athletic director job is fascinating, but this, again, I'm still pinching myself to be honest with you. I mean, the people that pour into this office every day that I get the chance to go meet with, the midshipmen I get to see every day walking or running on the yard. I mean, you cannot be here and not be inspired by again, just the just the energy and the focus that everyone has on this whole yard, whether it's an 18-year-old plebe or whether it's a veteran
yeah.
professor. I mean, it's just awesome. Everyone believes in the same mission. Everyone wants to contribute in a way that's just really heartwarming, to be honest with
I
you.
love it. One quick question here, because again, we just added Navy triathlon as a varsity sport a couple years
Yeah.
ago. Are there any other sports that are in discussion that are either going to, potentially get promoted to a varsity sport or get added at some point? Any other additional programs that are kind of in discussion, or are we kind of set with the teams that we have, at least for the foreseeable future?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you mentioned triathlon. They just won a huge event
Yeah,
this past weekend, which was
big
one of their
time.
first major victories in their program's history. So that was awesome to see. Our rugby, I was able to attend some rugby matches this weekend, which is really cool. We've had a lot of success there. So we've got a lot of unique sports that, again, think about that. Or triathlon, you have to be one of the most fit people in the world to be able to do that. That
No
contributes to the
joke.
physical mission and to our future war fighters. Rugby, what can be more physical than the mindset it takes both strategically and physically for that. So again, it all fits back into the mission with these sports that we have. And in an era where many colleges are just trying to cut them, obviously if we're able to continue to get the support we get and hopefully increase it upon it, we'll be able to contribute that. As it relates to, my relative newness here in terms of adding any, I mean, obviously sometimes I get the opposite reaction. It's like, man, why do you have so many? And I've explained that already on this podcast because it is a lot. Sometimes people have to realize there is you got to think about the experience for the student athlete overall. You got to think about what coaching and support staff's necessary, the trainers, the extra nutrition aspects, everything that goes into it all has to be thought about and make sure that you have the facility. I think the biggest challenge we have right now, if we ever consider adding more, is really just the facilities. I mean, we're maxed out. We want to keep maxing out what we can do because they all kind of have it at the same time. Again, the time constraints are so regimented here for logical and obvious reasons that it's not like I can use the basketball practice gym all day long. They're in class and they're at drill and they're they're doing other things there. So it's really very regimented in terms of what we do, and that's where we're so fortunate to have like the Brigade Sports Complex on the other side of the river to be able to have not only the golf course but the rugby and the indoor tennis facility and the other sports that compete and train over there. Else, man, we would have real challenges. And then maybe there's potential, obviously, there for other things in the break and the ice rink, which provides for our hockey club teams
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So too early to tell anything about any future varsities, but obviously any of our clubs, if there was the right support, the right facilities, that's something to be thinking about. I don't know. I mean, when you look nationally, I think there's a big growth in. We already have gymnastics on the men's side, so we're good there. So that there's some growth there. There's flag football is becoming one that's
Hmm.
become more increasingly popular, particularly on the women's side in the world. We already have sprint football
Mhm.
on the men's in addition to our varsity. So I don't know. We'll just have to kind of keep watching what's out there. There has to be a demand
Sure.
in terms of people that are playing on the scholastic
Yeah.
level, and then ultimately, do we have the facilities that can support
Yeah.
it? But
When,
I think we're pretty comfortable at 36 for the foreseeable
that's fair.
future, to be
When,
honest
when do you when, when do you
with
think pickleball's getting? I keep seeing the rise of
you.
pickleball. When's D1 pickleball coming out?
That'll be something to watch. That's a good
Yeah.
point, and it's just such a popular activity here on the yard with the midshipmen, and it makes sense because hey, you don't have much time, and you can get out there and play in a hurry,
Yeah.
and all these recreational courts right along inside our practice fields have kind of both converted to tennis and pickleball. So it seems to be very popular amongst the
Yeah.
midshipmen. I know the club. I've talked to the club coach and the operators there. That obviously it's very
Yeah.
popular. So that's another sport to kind of watch what will happen long term.
Fair. Final topic. You mentioned it a couple times. This idea of NIL. You know, there'll be some people out there that will continue to worry about the fact that NIL is not really a thing at the Naval Academy and continuing to build, especially a football program that can compete. But again, as we're recording this, we're 3-0. We have Rice coming up this weekend. But for you as an AD at an institution that competes at a very high level, that can go and win the American Conference, that can compete against Power Five schools, to do that without NIL, how vastly different is this experience for you in this era of NIL, and how do we stay competitive and recruit? And I know you kind of mentioned like our NILs on the back end, but how do you approach this from again competing against Power Five level talent without the ability to pay players?
Yeah, and it's just a reality that everyone's having to adjust to it on different
Yeah.
levels. The place I just left, we were finding creative ways to find every single ounce of revenue and funding sources we could pour into what we needed to facility wise, and also into creating the revenue that was necessary for them. And they're seeing some great success across the board there now with that strategy. Here, obviously, I think the strategy is in terms of pointing out the story, in terms of the NIL is on the back end. You've got the guarantee of a job that the other schools can't provide. You've got the ability for skills and different things that you're going to learn that you can't learn anywhere else. But that does take some obvious maturity and ability to look big picture,
Sure.
which makes our recruiting that much more important. And that's why it's important to have great coaches like we do and be able to tell that story and to be able to have the understanding of what that all means. Now, having said all that, I also think it also points out that we also, because in this era, a lot of schools at the P4 level are almost admittingly saying that they don't even recruit high schools anymore, that they just kind of go and look to different major kind of level conferences, take the best of them, and they've already had some training and they move on. Well, that creates, you got to, blue ocean theory, if you will. You got to go to where what's next and what's smart in doing that. And so that allows us, I think we are seeing across the board in all sports, probably a higher rated recruit coming to the Naval Academy than we'd seen probably ever before in our history. And that's because they aren't being necessarily finding homes at some of the schools. And then when they hear from our coach, and they kind of, once you hear that first reaction, hey, cool, I heard from Navy. And then you look a little bit under the hood, and then you realize all the things that it kind of provides you. And then you take a visit to Annapolis, and then you're like, hey, this is different. This might be a little harder than what my colleagues are going to deal at other schools, but this is what I'm all about, right? And so that's where it's just been really interesting. When you're a developmental program, I think a lot of kids see that and say, hey, this is a chance to play D1 sports with a real huge upside, albeit different, that I can be a little bit harder, a little bit opportunity for future growth. But I also think there's pride in taking that development approach. And when you can kind of look at like, hey, in all likelihood, if I do what I'm supposed to do, if I'm coachable, if I do everything I think I'm able to do to my full capabilities, they're not going to hire a linebacker mercenary to come in and take my spot my junior year, my senior year. And that, people are looking, when you have the maturity to look big picture and think that all the way through, and certainly parents do. That's where a lot of parents really get into, hey, my son could come to the Naval Academy, or my daughter could, and have that kind of experience. Yes, sign me up. So again, it's a different message. It's a very genuine message. It's true. It takes a little bit more explanation. You still have to find that, the special young man or woman that we're willing to do that. But that's always been the case. We've always had to go sift a little bit deeper to find the young man or woman that want to do that. But then now I think the upsides are probably more prevalent than ever before. So I think that's where we're winning. And then when you look at it, then because of that, you play together for 3 or 4 years, and you, especially with your expertise in basketball, I mean, gosh, 5 basketball players that have played together and strategized for a while can beat individual talent almost any day of the week, right? So, and the same thing can hold true here. There's, it's not without exception. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of P4 schools and even teams in the American that got 60 or 70 new football players on their roster this year. Now, they're all probably extremely talented, and sometimes you can get them to play together pretty quickly, and you've seen examples of that, but you see actually a similar number of experiences where, hey, they just don't gel together, and that's not going to work. Whereas our teams are going to play together for 3 or 4 years with a logical succession plan, a logical developmental plan that we can recruit to. And it's probably the way college sports was originally intended to be. And we get the added wrinkle of, again, being one of the greatest leadership centers in the world. We'll find our fair share of great midshipmen to move us forward.
Heck yeah. Well, sir, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, I felt like that was great. You mentioned, our one advantage is we just have to recruit. We just have to recruit well. And now we get that direct access to almost an untapped pool, which is like directly from high school talent, and finding, the right opportunities there. So thank you so much for taking the time to come with us and discuss everything about the Navy athletics program. I really appreciate you taking the time. Anything that I didn't ask, or anything you kind of want to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts and to explain some of the great things that are happening at Naval Academy Athletic Association, and just appreciate everyone listening to consider supporting us through attending games, through watching our games, listening about our players, and certainly considering supporting us through, with the different sports that we offer. So NavySports.com, all the information you could ever want there. We've got a great app that can allow you to follow everything as well. And just appreciate it, because we take great pride in representing not only the current brigade, but the alums, but really anyone ever associated with the fleet and the Corps is what the Naval Academy sports are able to do. And we take great pride in that. So thank you for your support.
Well, thank you. All right, everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Academy Insider Podcast. I really hope you liked it, enjoyed it, and learned something. during this time. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe or leave a comment about the episode. We really appreciate to hear your feedback about everything and continue to make Academy Insider an amazing service that guides, serves, and supports midshipmen, future midshipmen, and their families. Thank you.